Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here and giving me the time and your ears this morning for a short period of time. My name is Hugo Bishop. As introduced, I work alongside Paul de Cruz, who you heard from earlier on the panel. And together we kind of map across the leadership function within the cloud security business here in EMEA. I focus more around the UKI predominantly and some pockets around Europe. Giving a broad kind of context on organizationals and cultures context in this digital business transformation subject that we're here to discuss. And it's something of a grandiose term, really, and perhaps even a little abstract. And the aim of this presentation, following some of the issues and the movements that you heard about from the panel this morning, is to look at that digital business transformation world and kind of look at it in the context of adoption, movement to an adoption of the cloud and the many different ways that manifests. And ultimately to look at kind of some of the trends, some of the statistics behind that, some of the impact benefits that organizations see from moving and increasing adoption of the cloud, but obviously also some of the risks associated with that, right? From a visibility and control perspective. And to, I guess, then look at the security best practices that we see as an organization and from our interactions with the wider IT world and other security organizations that really underpin that movement. So ultimately the key pillar of that shift to digital business transformation is business enablement, fundamentally, as you've heard this morning. It's to deliver the best and most personalized experience for your customers and your employees, to transform your processes and business models to be able to deliver that, and ultimately to empower your workforce and to enable them to maximize their potential and their efficiency. So in order to do that, we take a brief step back to have a look at how IT was built. So all your critical infrastructure, your business applications, your people, your workstations, all sat behind your firewall on your corporate network. Any branch offices within the network were backhauled via MPLS, and everything egressed and went out through your security controls that you had on site. So this was great from a security perspective, not so great from an agility perspective, right? And as we've seen the shift towards enablement, towards more users needing to work remotely and access direct to cloud, we've kind of seen a shift away from this traditional model into, and I'm going to walk through these slides real quick, but these are kind of the three iterations that we see now of the network. So we see a predominantly on-premise private DC approach, where there's a little bit of connectivity, whether that's on the mobile worker or the SaaS perspective, but most of the campus is still sitting behind the enterprise edge. We see a movement to a kind of cloud-first movement, right, where maybe 67% or so is now sitting in public cloud or SaaS or DIA or direct to cloud, and then we see cloud all-in or a cloud-native approach. And I'd be interested, kind of a show of hands in the room, if anyone feels at this point in time that they would regard their organization as fully cloud-native or cloud-first, or is it more on the cloud-first side or the cloud-native side? Because when we took a poll of this 6 months ago, when we got together in Windsor, we saw the majority of organizations that we had in the room regarded themselves as cloud-first. Would that you feel that's the same? Show of hands, anyone feel that they are cloud all-in at this point in time? Chris? Oh, okay. So moving on. We've worked with some third-party organizations and done some fact-finding around where people are placing their budgets and what's really going into the digital transformation. And we came back with these stats, right? So 85% of organizations are already evaluating or using public cloud. 87% are looking at the hybrid cloud and 94% looking at multiple clouds. So really we can see clear evidence behind this shift and a focus on where the budgets are being applied to enable this. And so as we talked about, if we look back to the slide that I showed about where IT was, this is where IT is now, and we see this. I can clearly map this back to the Cisco organizational context. We see critical infrastructure now hosted in the cloud. We see a huge movement towards the mobile worker, which is brilliant from a business enablement perspective, but again, challenges around security and visibility of what those workers are doing. We see critical business applications being hosted in the cloud on a SaaS perspective. Your workers working from Office 365 or Salesforce or G Suite or whatever that SaaS application might be, right? Which is great to allow them to be able to work from anywhere and from any device, but again, creates challenges for your organization around controlling and getting visibility of what those users are doing and the data that they might or might not be collaborating in the cloud. And we've seen a big shift towards DIA in the branch. Cisco in particular, putting a lot of focus around the SD-WAN movement and how to secure that, and that's something I'll come on to a little bit later as well. But fundamentally, we're seeing a shift away from the traditional model to the more agile model, right? And the challenges associated with that. So, a few more stats to back up that previous slide is, these stats are probably 18 months old now, but again, market analysis, around 50% of the workforce is now mobile. 82% of that workforce admit to not using the VPN. Like, I know that some organizations still enforce a VPN, right, which is great from a security posture perspective, but again, you lose some of that agility. Like myself, being an employee at Cisco, we have the VPN. I don't have to turn it on. And we put security and controls in place to ensure that I am, or my endpoint is protected, whether or not I choose to do so. Significant increase in SaaS usage, 70%, and 70% of branch offices have now moved to the DIA. So we need to look at the security controls that traditionally you had in place on the HQ and look at how we can shift those and extend those out to the new cloud edge. And this was touched on in the panel before, but it's a question of how do business and line of business executives who focus on growth first and foremost and efficiency and agility work with yourselves as IT professionals, with your focus on orchestrating a technology posture, having security across the board, and ultimately looking at analytics. And we're seeing a lot of investment in the analytics side, right? And able to bring that in-house and not have to rely on third parties or external bodies to deliver the analytics that you need to map across, what is in this day and age usually a significant spread of security tool sets and security risks. On the right-hand side, we have seen a trend in the recent times of networking and security very much beginning to work more closely together, which is a necessity. Certainly from a Cisco perspective, again, bringing this in-house, we've got to drive behind the whole network intuitive model and using the network as an enabler, but that's very much hand in hand with security, and security underpins everything, right? So we build security in from day one. So on that subject, is your security truly effective? We speak to organizations who have potentially 100 vendors. These systems are not integrated, and they simply don't have the amount of people or the amount of time to follow up on all the alerting that they see from these systems. So this is high-level slide. I'm not going to spend much time on this. Is Cisco's security portfolio, in the three main areas. So we look at the network, we look at the endpoint, and we look at cloud, right? I'm here predominantly to talk about the cloud side, but the importance of this slide really is to look at Cisco's strategy in the security market. It's an acquisition-led strategy. It's a strategy behind buying best-of-breed products predominantly. Most of these are acquisitions over the last 5 to 10 years, and some very recent acquisitions. And it's about Cisco's development into the security is predominantly around integrating these solutions, both at the back end and at the front end, so that they share telemetry. You see Talos at the top. I've got a slide that touches on Talos. I hope most people in the room know what Talos is, but it's we'll come on to it a bit later, but Talos underpins everything from a security research and analytics perspective. So these are the key security challenges that we still hear when we speak to our customers, right? And I've talked about some of these to date through this presentation, but malware and ransomware, you can have every security protocol or device on your network and cloud and SaaS delivered security devices. Malware and ransomware, it's still getting in, still causing problems. The attackers always seem to be one step ahead, and it's still a major headache for people, right? Gaps in visibility, coverage, and control, from the transformation and the adoption of cloud. Shadow IT is becoming a big issue for organizations. And again, I'll come on to that in a bit more detail later. And fundamentally, the complexity in managing security, but also the shortage of really talented security staff out there in the marketplace to really deal with all the alerts and issues being faced by organizations on the security side. So, predominantly from a cloud perspective, this is where Cisco would outline, the key pillars of a solution to put in place. I've taken out the actual product names at this point in time, but on the left-hand side, we're talking about secure access to the internet, right? So whatever device and wherever your user is, making sure that his access to the internet or to the cloud or to the SaaS, is secure. On the SaaS side in the middle there, there's been a big shift in the market over recent years towards cloud access security brokerage to fundamentally give visibility and control over what people are doing within those SaaS applications and the data they're exposing within them. And cloud-delivered intelligence, fundamentally, the shift towards pooling your intelligence and your threat intel into a single correlated source in order to prioritize investigations and speed up incident response to alleviate some of those challenges around time and resource. And underpinning that, we very much believe that, and see organizations moving towards investing in an adaptive MFA solution, to easily enforce policies across network and applications. So a slide to kind of recap a little bit around security and the journey that the organizations we work with are on. The on-premise security is obviously still critical, right? But then as you look to move to the cloud, you've got solutions within the Cisco portfolio like Umbrella, which is our gateway service, CloudLock, which is the CASB within the Cisco portfolio, and then actually extending that visibility to public and hybrid cloud environments on the PaaS and IaaS side, where Cisco has a solution called StealthWatch Cloud. And underpinning everything, as discussed, is Joe on the MFA. So to delve a little bit into some of those solutions, this is where Cisco Umbrella would sit. So Cisco Umbrella is based on the Open DNS service that Cisco acquired going back best part of 4 years now. And really, we see organizations deploying Cisco Umbrella for three main reasons. It will add an added layer of security at your existing stack on the HQ. But the prevalent and more pertinent use cases really is enabling that for off-network users and to transform the branch security for DIA. Brief slide around how exactly we do that. OpenDNS is a very, very large global recursive DNS service. It's an open resolver for people at home. And this is our view of the internet. So we have 31 data centers distributed globally. We have 80 or 90 million active users on that. The vast majority of those users are people using it for free at home for a fast, reliable internet experience. And we love those users because they click on anything, right? And those 180 billion requests that we see every day give us a huge amount of data that we correlate to make decisions about fundamentally where malicious activity is being hosted on the internet. On top of that network was built Cisco Umbrella, which is an enterprise-grade security solution fundamentally leveraging the DNS request to enforce security. A little slide around some of the intelligence that feeds into that. So we talked about the data that we see just from running the resolution network. We run dozens of models of big machine learning, big data analytics, a bit buzzwordy, against that data. So automatically uncover where malware, where command and control is calling back to, where malicious actors are hosting their infrastructure on the internet. Cisco Talos, which again I've touched on already, feeds into that in the back end as it does the whole Cisco security portfolio. And we have a team of about 300 researchers that are looking into this and building models and classifying and looking into specific domains at the same time. So moving on to Talos. Talos is the world's largest non-government threat intelligence organization on the planet. I think that's up to about 300 full-time threat researchers now. analyzing huge numbers of emails, of DNS requests, of every kind of connection out there to feed into Cisco's whole security portfolio and ensure that we are as ahead of the game as we possibly can be. So we're blocking about 20 billion threats daily at this point in time. And again, that ultimately feeds into, we give our customers access to our global intelligence in a number of different ways. There's a product within the cloud security portfolio called Investigate. What it really is console or API access into our data set, which we allow our customers to use to prioritize that investigation, to speed up the response, to stay ahead of attacks. So, coming on to Shadow IT. This is a quote from Gartner. It's a little bit aggressive, perhaps, but Shadow IT. And I've had conversations last night with people referencing Shadow IT as an increasing problem. Right? It's a huge business enabler in many ways. Leveraging the use of these applications, but it's getting visibility and control over exactly what your users are doing. That's becoming more and more important. Here's some stats to kind of sum that up. 80% of end users are using software that's not cleared by IT. The average organization that we work with and get visibility of what exactly we're seeing from a request pattern to SaaS, are seeing over 1,200 cloud services being used from their organization. And there's a prediction that 33% of enterprise attacks will come from Shadow IT by next year. So, this is a reality. It's a growing and unstoppable force, as Gartner says. And this is kind of an example of a conversation that we'll have every day with organizations. Their expectation is they might have 30 to 40 applications running on their network, or people working from within the network or off-network purposes. And potentially they might be aware of or be authorizing the use of 3 or 4 less collaboration apps. But the reality that we see, as discussed, is an average of 1,200, often significantly more, and a vast array of collaboration apps in use, right? Which is creating a huge exposure vector from a DLP perspective, and for the exposure of privileged information, whether that's personal or private IP. So, moving forwards, we need to really look at Shadow IT as, looking at it from 2 ways: acceptance and protection of the Shadow IT in play on an organization, and the detection and punishment arm to that. One of the features that we've recently released into Cisco Umbrella, we call application discovery and control. It's how we've found out the stats that I've referenced already. We have the ability to give our customers visibility of all SaaS applications being requested from their environment, and then an ability to block and control some of that. So fundamentally, that really, if you break it down, is the first iteration of moving traditional CASB controls into your gateway. As when we look at the market and we look at the uptake in standalone CASB, we really see a movement towards leveraging that functionality within a platform of products, right? So Gartner, a couple of years ago, coined the expression the secure internet gateway. This is basically the next iteration of the secure web gateway. And really what we're looking at here is enabling organizations to pick and choose from a suite of capabilities within a single platform to deploy, within their different environments and different contexts, to leverage the functionality that they need, right? So, and we're looking at taking some of those traditional, appliance-based or on-premise security controls and actually delivering them from the cloud, right? So you can get a pervasive layer of security to all your users and all your branches, based on a single policy. So we're looking at taking firewalling into the cloud. Take traditional web gateways and proxies, have been shifting into the cloud for some time. That DNS layer security that underpins it all, which is really still remains very much part of the conversation. DNS is a very powerful place to enforce security. It's the first request out to the internet. It precedes file execution. It's port and protocol agnostic. And obviously increasing those DLP controls around those traditional CASB controls, all into a single platform. So people might look, and ultimately in our vision within Cisco is if, you've got your critical corporate traffic and applications, maybe they sit behind the full proxy, but maybe when you look towards the branch and then SD-WAN, perhaps you're looking at DNS or DNS-based controls or cloud firewalling to remove some of that cost associated with putting hardware and maintaining hardware in every single branch. So it's a shift from that traditional on-prem security controls into the cloud for ease of management and ease of deployment. Another quote from Gartner, to kind of tie together everything I just talked about, they believe that the secure internet gateway could potentially offset or displace some or all of those on-premise solutions that we've seen traditionally, especially in the branch office locations. And so this is my last slide. This kind of ties together the things we've talked about in terms of Cisco's vision, right, towards secure internet gateway. There are other people and other organizations in this marketplace with similar or slightly different visions. This is the way Cisco believes we need to deliver for our customers that choice of controls to work across network, across application, across cloud, and across all their users. So from the DNS layer security on the left-hand side to building out that proxy functionality where it's needed, cloud-delivered firewalling in the branch, rolling in those CASB controls to get in line to leverage the proxy and to really get visibility and control over what's going on in those SaaS applications and to enforce DLP. And underpinning everything is a correlated threat intel. So with that, I'll go out to the room for any questions if there are any.
I've got one, Hugo.
Okay.
I mean, you guys run, I suppose, a large percentage of the fabric of the internet, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, do you still see in the future like a heavy reliance on signature-based detection, or is it progressing more into self-protecting, self-healing heuristics, or are we still very much in that a 0 day can topple a company? Where's it all going from a Cisco perspective?
So I think there's a general acceptance that there's still going to remain a number of challenges, right? Like 0 day attacks, we have lots of mechanisms to get ahead of those. Particularly on the umbrella side, a lot of the analytics that we have in that fabric of the internet that we see and we sit within. So at the moment, the umbrella or the open DNS network, as it was, sees around about between 3 and 4% of all internet traffic, right? So as a number, that doesn't sound that big, but as a cross-section, it's pretty important and pretty powerful. That network and some of the tools and the analytics that we run against it allows us to be very predictive against certain attacks. So for instance, we had the domain associated with the WannaCry attack blocked 22 days before that domain went live. Because of the way we see that, have that infrastructure view, we can be very predictive, right? But there's no silver bullet when it comes to security, as you know. Cisco are looking to build out an integrated architecture that covers you as far as possible. But the attackers are very clever, right? And the nature of it, unfortunately, is that often they're always going to be that one step ahead, right? So, the answer from our perspective is to put best of breed and integrated tool sets in place, but have a well thought out and strong kind of incident response and SOC operation to underpin it all for the inevitable occurrences when you will be breached, and educate your people, right? We know like humans are a big part of the problem. We talked about this last night at dinner. We run internal phishing campaigns at Cisco, and people are still falling for them, right? And the social engineering that goes behind a lot of phishing attacks makes things very, very believable, right? And so there's always going to be a human risk to whatever controls you put in place.
Good.
Anyone else? Yep. Oh.
So do you see potential reuse now, given the large amount of SaaS services that are being used across
I guess yes. I mean, from a credentials perspective, I think that's why we look at the multi-factor authentication as being a critical element to anyone's security posture, fundamentally. I mean, we've got a little table just outside if anyone would like to find out more. I think time's up, is it? Pretty much. Thank you very much for listening to me today. And yeah, if you'd like to understand any more, please come and see us outside.
Thank you, Hugo.
Thanks.
I think we got the second network.